Hello, I'd like to tell you about a book that ought to be made into a movie. The book is called Primal Tears, and it was written by a woman named Kelby Wilson. It's the story of a girl who is the product of an unusual science experiment gone wrong. Sage Shepherd comes into the world when a young woman decides to spit in the face of the conservatives who seem to run everything in her town, and engages in a scientific experiment to see if bonobo fetuses can grow inside a human female. The experiment is a failure, and instead of growing a proper bonobo, young Sarah grows a hybrid creature whom she decides to keep and raise. She and her best friend decide to name the creature Sage. As she grows up on her family's ranch, far from prying eyes, young Sage begins to discover all the many ways she is different from the other children around her. Not only does she look like a cross between a bonobo ape and a human girl, but she can climb faster than any of the other children, and she is much stronger than the other children. Sage eventually comes to have strong feelings of self-hatred due to her unusual appearance and the fact that her family insists on sheltering her from the eyes of a world that isn't always open to new things. When an ultra-conservative group based on the Ku Klux Klan learns of Sage's existence, she and her family must flee to the safety of an old friend of Kevin, her father. This part of the book is largely filler that would likely be cut from the film if they were ever to make one. But what follows is where it gets really interesting. Realizing that the human world is no longer safe for her, Sage makes the choice to run away. She uses her animal instincts to survive for 2 years in the wild. She learns more about her spiritual connection with nature during this time as well. She is lonely, though, and longs for companionship. Eventually, one day when she is out walking, she comes across her old childhood friend, Carver, and a group of environmentalists who call themselves Tree Nation. The members of Tree Nation include a girl named Virgo Jane, whom Sage develops a close personal and, true to the bonobo way, sexual relationship with. Sage loves being with the members of Tree Nation, fighting for a common goal of environmental protection. Bonobos are among the most sexual creatures on the planet, so Sage also enjoys the attention of many of the boys and girls that make up the group. Carver tells Sage's family of her whereabouts, and needless to say, they are all delighted to see her again. In the original novel, many of the members of Tree Nation, including Sage and VJ, are quite young, only 14 years old when they meet. Due to the intense sexual nature of the story, though, it is my feeling that if a movie were to be made, that it would be perhaps best if the timeline were altered so that Sage and the other teens were slightly older, say around 16 or so, when they met. Sage's lesbian lover, Virgo Jane, is perhaps the most dedicated to the cause of protecting the environment, perhaps even more than Sage herself. Virgo Jane is strong-willed and driven by the urge to do right by the world around her. She is perhaps, though, a bit too driven. A fact which becomes tragically obvious when she commits suicide out of protest against an oil company that is poisoning the residents of an African village. In the original novel, one gets the feeling that VJ is killed off simply because she's a lesbian. Therefore, it will be a challenge for a screenwriter to rework the story so that one does not get the feeling that VJ died simply because of her sexual orientation. I do not have a solid opinion on who should play the role of Sage's boyfriend Carver, although someone handsome like Zac Efron does come to mind. I do believe, however, that Sage Shepherd would best be captured through the use of computer graphics due to her unusual appearance and her ability to maneuver through the trees like a girl version of Tarzan meets Spider-Man, or Spider-Woman, as the case may be. In the book, Sage is described as having a shy smile and has no sense of humor. She's described as being very sexy, though, and therefore, in my opinion, the voice of Sage Shepherd should be provided by the delectable Heather Morris of Glee fame. Morris has a somewhat shy-sounding quality to her voice, which would be perfect for Sage. She's also one of the sexiest young women in TV today, another trait which would make her suitable to be connected with the role of Sage Shepherd. Sadly, though, fans of Morris would not get to see her naked if they were to make Sage computer-generated, which I strongly believe that they should. Sage is also incredibly kind, which I'm sure many fans of Britney would enjoy. The role of the highly dedicated yet sometimes seemingly unbalanced Virgo Jane would be perfect for Rooney Mara, best known for her outstanding portrayal of Lisbeth Salander. Mara is perhaps the most talented young female actor to take on the role of a damaged woman today. While VJ is nowhere near as messed up as Lisbeth, although Lisbeth never committed suicide, of course, Mara would bring an undoubtedly Academy-nominated performance to the role. With these two women in the film, particularly Mara, Primal Tears would be certain to win at least a couple Academy Awards. Of course, a good movie is not built on good actors alone. I have no concrete opinion on who should direct the movie or who should write it. I do feel, however, that Hans Zimmer would be perfect to compose the score. Then again, I think Hans Zimmer is basically perfect for any film soundtrack. So purchase the original novel, Primal Tears by Kelpie Wilson, and see if you think that this book would make a good movie. It would need some heavy adapting for sure, but I think that at its core it has the makings of a really good Hollywood film. Kelpie Wilson herself has even said that she has been approached by a few movie producers. I can only assume that there was some sort of disagreement between them though, since it happened at least 4 or 5 years ago. The movie could be used to raise awareness for various problems that face the environment today. Not to mention the ideal role of Heather Morris as Sage Shepherd. And there's nothing wrong with that.